Before the show starts, drop a comment below with where you're watching from, then sit back, relax, and get ready for some chilling stories. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to end up in a situation like this. I'm a regular dude, tech consultant, working remotely, nothing flashy. I live alone in a small apartment in a quiet suburb of Portland. It's not the nicest neighborhood, but it's quiet enough, and most people keep to themselves. That used to be exactly what I liked about it. It all started with little things. Dumb things, honestly. Things I wouldn't even mention to anyone because they sounded paranoid. Like the hallway light in my apartment flickering whenever I passed by, or the fact that my bathroom door was slightly open a few times when I knew I'd left it shut. One night, around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps above me. But I live on the top floor, no one should be up there. I got up, grabbed a kitchen knife, and stood in my living room like an idiot, waiting for something to happen. It didn't. I convinced myself it was just the pipes or something settling. Then came the lights. Across the street, there's a building that's mostly empty, just a couple of old tenants, and one unit that's always had its curtains shut. I started noticing that every night, around the same time, a dim blue glow would come from behind those curtains. It wasn't a TV flicker or anything normal. It was steady, cold, like a scream maybe. I tried not to think much of it, but something about it gave me the creeps. The real turning point was during a Zoom call with a client. Just before the meeting started, I noticed this faint clicking sound in my headphones. It wasn't coming from the call. It was too early for that. It sounded like interference, maybe. I brushed it off, finished the call, and moved on. But then I started noticing it more often, always right before or after I was on a video call. That, paired with this strange lag when I used certain apps, made me think something was off. So I ran a basic sweep of my network, checked the IPs connected to my router. There was one that stood out, a device labeled XGCam module. I didn't own anything with that name. My stomach dropped. I disconnected everything, reset the router, and went through my apartment top to bottom. I was expecting to find nothing, honestly. I didn't think I'd actually find anything, but I did. Behind my TV, buried in the mess of wires, there was this small black cube, like not bigger than a golf ball. No label, no lights. I only noticed it because the dust pattern was off. It looked too clean compared to everything else. I picked it up carefully and realized it had a small lens. It was a damn camera, a wireless camera, hidden in my apartment. I froze. My mouth went dry. I felt like I couldn't move. I looked around the apartment like I was seeing it for the first time. Every socket, every vent, every tiny crevice suddenly felt suspicious. Who the hell had been in my place? I called the police. They sent someone over, but honestly, the cop treated it like a minor prank. Probably some dumb kid with tech knowledge, he said. You sure it wasn't left by a previous tenant? Yeah, right. I moved in 6 months ago and had fully redecorated. That camera was new. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch, lights off, just staring across the street at the glowing window. My heart thudded every time a car passed or when the fridge made a noise. I was wired, paranoid, but I was also pissed. Someone had invaded my space, and no one was taking it seriously. The next day, I went to a friend who works in cybersecurity. She loaned me a detector for RF signals, basically a bug sweeper. I spent that whole evening going through the apartment inch by inch. I found 2 more devices. One inside a fake smoke detector in my bedroom. Another behind the air vent in the hallway. Both cameras. Both active. I yanked them out and put them in a metal box to block their signal. Then I made a mistake. I went to the window, stared directly at that glowing unit across the street, and flipped it off. I shouldn't have done that, because the next morning, there was a note under my door. It wasn't typed. It wasn't threatening in the obvious sense. Just a small piece of paper with 4 words, handwritten in neat, calm lettering. You shouldn't have looked. I didn't even touch the note at first. Just stared at it like it might explode. I couldn't believe how calm the handwriting was. No threats, no demands. Just a reminder that someone knew what I'd done. That they were close. That they had access to my place again. I packed a bag within 10 minutes. Threw my laptop, hard drives, and a change of clothes inside, and bolted out of the apartment. I stayed in my car that night, parked in a Walmart lot 2 towns over. Didn't even try to sleep. Every shadow looked like a person. Every headlight made my pulse spike. The next morning, I went back during daylight. I wanted to grab a few more things and get the hell out permanently. I wasn't even thinking of fighting back anymore. Just survival. But when I opened the door to my apartment, it hit me. The air was colder. Still. Off. Like the place had been sealed too tightly. I stepped inside slowly. That's when I saw it. Everything was exactly where I left it. Except for one thing. My laptop. It was turned on. It had been off when I left. I was sure of it. I walked up to it like it was a bomb. The screen was lit, camera light blinking, recording. On the screen was a live feed. From my bedroom. From a new camera I hadn't found. And next to the laptop, just sitting there on my desk, was a USB drive. No label. No note. I didn't touch it. I slammed the lid of the laptop shut, pulled the power cord, and unplugged every single outlet I could find. Then I went for the breaker and killed power to the whole unit. Total blackout. It was 3:40 p.m., but it felt like midnight inside that place. I didn't call the cops this time. I knew what they'd say. Instead, I grabbed the laptop, the drive, and I left. Drove 3 hours to the coast, rented a small Airbnb, and finally opened the USB on a fresh, offline laptop my friend had lent me. There were dozens of video files. All of me. Sleeping. Eating. Changing clothes. Brushing my teeth. Staring out the window. Dozens of angles. Different days. Some of them had timestamps from before I found the first camera. I felt sick. My hands shook so bad I could barely hold the mouse. In one of the clips, I was on a video call with my mom, talking about Thanksgiving plans, laughing, and from the camera angle, it was obvious the camera was in my ceiling fan, another place I hadn't checked. The worst part? The footage zoomed in whenever I laughed. That night, I decided to end it. I called a private investigator, used every cent of savings I had, and asked him to trace the signal origins of those devices. Took him a week. The source? Apartment 3A. Across the street. The unit with the blue light. Turns out, the place was leased under a fake name. Utilities paid in crypto. Inside, there was nothing but a mattress, a mini fridge, and a full surveillance setup, multiple screens, antennas, recording drives, and a wall covered in photos. Of me. The guy was gone, of course. Completely vanished. Police eventually got involved when the PI reported it, but by then it was too late. Whoever he was, he'd covered his tracks. Completely. But they confirmed it wasn't just me. Other faces were found in backup drives. Other victims. I left the state after that. Moved to a rural area with no apartments nearby. No neighbors within 200 feet. I don't do video calls anymore. Don't have smart devices in my home. And I sweep for bugs monthly. It's been over a year now, and I still wake up sometimes thinking someone's watching. Because the thing is, he was never caught. And sometimes, I see unfamiliar cars parked near my property, just sitting there, with someone inside. I hadn't seen my sister in nearly 5 months when she invited me to visit her new house. Laura had always been my rock, older by 6 years, way more grounded than me, the kind of person who always made others feel safe just by being around. So when she moved in with her new boyfriend, Craig, and dropped off the map almost entirely, I started to worry. She finally reached out on a Thursday evening. The text was short and oddly formal. "Hey, come spend the weekend. Craig and I would love to have you." No emojis. No exclamation marks. Just plain and distant. But I agreed. Of course I did. I missed her, and part of me hoped I was just being dramatic. Craig's house, or their house, I guess, was deep in the woods, about 2 hours outside the city. No neighbors. No real landmarks. The kind of place you pass once on the highway and never see again. When I pulled up the dirt driveway, the first thing I noticed was how quiet everything was. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. The house itself was nice, modern, 2 stories, lots of glass and wood. But it felt sterile, too clean, not lived in. Craig greeted me at the door before I even knocked. He was tall, early 40s, dressed like a catalog model for casual rich guy. Polite, smiling. But something about the way he looked at me made my stomach tighten, like he was sizing me up. Laura came down a minute later. She looked thinner, paler, still beautiful, but hollow in a way I couldn't explain. She hugged me, but it was brief. Awkward. "Your room's upstairs," she said, already turning away. "Dinner's at 7. Craig chimed in behind her. "We like to keep a schedule here. Helps with routine." I nodded, forcing a smile. Maybe they were just being quirky. Maybe I was being judgmental. But when I got to the guest room, I noticed the first red flag. There was a camera in the corner of the ceiling. Not hidden. Just there. Black, blinking, aimed directly at the bed. I stared at it for a while, trying to figure out if it was part of some weird smart security system or something creepier. When I brought it up over dinner, Craig just smiled and said, "We like to monitor the property. For safety." Laura stayed quiet. The rest of the evening fell off. Craig did most of the talking. Laura barely touched her food. Anytime I asked her something personal, work, friends, how she was adjusting, she'd glance at Craig before answering, like she was checking if it was okay. When I asked her to hang out alone the next morning, just the two of us, Craig said, "Why don't we all go hiking instead? There's a great trail just behind the house. You'll love it." Laura just nodded. The hike was weird. Craig walked behind us the whole time, silent. Close enough to hear everything, far enough to feel like he was giving us space. I tried asking Laura if she was okay, but all she said was, "Things are just different now." Later that night, I waited until everyone was asleep and snuck downstairs to the kitchen to grab some water. That's when I noticed it. On the wall by the basement door, a monitor showing multiple camera feeds: guest room, living room, kitchen, backyard, and Laura's bedroom. I felt sick. Back in my room, I looked around carefully. There were at least 2 cameras. One in the ceiling corner, another small one tucked into a bookshelf. I pulled out my phone to text someone, anyone, but there was no signal. Not even a single bar. The Wi-Fi was locked, and I didn't have the password. I was trapped. Not in chains or a cage, but in something much scarier, a curated illusion of safety. The next morning, I told Craig I wasn't feeling well, and planned to leave that day instead of staying until Sunday. He smiled. "Of course, but your car won't start. Battery issue, I think. I'll take a look at it tomorrow." I didn't even know how to respond. That night, Laura came to my room around 2 a.m. She didn't knock. She just appeared in the doorway, eyes wide and trembling. She whispered, "Don't say anything. Don't move your mouth too much. The cameras have mics." Then she slipped me a small piece of paper. On it, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "He doesn't let me leave. Help me." I didn't sleep after that. I just lay there, heart racing, eyes locked on the blinking red dot of the camera in the corner. Every sound in the house made me flinch. A floorboard creaking, a faucet dripping. I kept hearing Craig's voice in my head, calm and polite, masking something far more dangerous underneath. By sunrise, I had a plan, risky, half-baked, but it was all I had. I waited until Craig went out for his morning jog, which he did like clockwork. As soon as he stepped outside, I knocked gently on Laura's door. She opened it in seconds, already dressed, eyes puffy but alert. I whispered fast, "We're leaving. Today. But I need to kill the power." She nodded like she'd been waiting for me to say that. We moved quick. I grabbed a butter knife from the kitchen and slipped into the narrow crawl space under the stairs, where I'd noticed the breaker panel the night before. Hands shaking, I yanked the cover open and jammed the knife straight into the main switch. Sparks flew. Darkness. Everything went silent except for the whine of the dying cameras. I grabbed Laura's hand and we bolted. No time for bags, no shoes on her feet, just adrenaline and dirt underfoot as we ran behind the house and straight into the woods. We didn't stop running until our legs gave out, maybe a mile, maybe more, until we stumbled onto a gravel road and waved down a pickup truck hauling hay. The driver, an older man named Earl, took one look at our faces and let us in without a single question. We called the cops from his house. Craig was arrested later that day. Turns out, Laura wasn't his first. Just the first who made it out. There were hidden compartments in the basement. Chains. Journals detailing routines, obedience strategies, even punishments. The police said he was weeks away from isolating Laura completely. No outside contact, no devices, no access to anything. She moved in with me after that. For months, she wouldn't sleep unless I was in the room with her. Wouldn't close the door. Wouldn't even sit near a window. She's healing slowly. But some things stick with you, like the feeling of being watched, of smiling when you're scared, of knowing that someone can make a prison look exactly like home. Moving into a new place is supposed to feel like a fresh start. For me, it was more like stepping into a slow-burning nightmare. I just relocated to a quiet little town in upstate New York. Cheap rent, not too far from work, and a building that looked decent enough from the outside. My unit was on the second floor, apartment 2B. Just one neighbor above me in 3B, and a few others scattered throughout the three-story building. The first time I saw him, Gerald, I was carrying a box of books up the stairs. He stood at the top of the stairwell, completely still, just watching me. No greeting, no nod, no expression, just watching. I gave him a polite, "Hey," and he didn't even blink. Just turned and disappeared into his apartment. Weird, yeah, but I figured he was just socially awkward or something. I've met plenty of people like that. But then came the noise. It started that same night. Heavy footsteps above my bedroom, like someone pacing, slow, deliberate, heel to toe, over and over. Then the dragging sound, like furniture being scraped across hardwood floors. Except I knew the floors were carpeted. I'd seen the layout when I toured the building. At first, I thought he was just redecorating or something, but it kept happening. Every single night. Sometimes after midnight. Sometimes at 3 or 4 in the morning. Always the same pattern. I started sleeping with headphones on. Didn't help. Then came the stranger part. One morning I left for work, and when I came back, the front door to my apartment was slightly ajar. I know I locked it. I even remembered the double click from the deadbolt. But now it was just hanging open like I'd forgotten. Nothing seemed stolen, but something felt off. My coffee mug was moved. My bathroom mirror had a smudge on it, like someone had wiped steam off it with their hand. I live alone. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I didn't close the door all the way. Maybe I brushed the mirror myself and forgot. I kept making excuses. Then a few days later, I saw Gerald again. This time in the hallway. He was coming down the stairs as I was going up. I nodded. He stopped in front of me, leaned in slightly, and whispered, "You make too much noise at night." I was stunned. Me? I barely made a sound. I didn't even have a TV set up yet. "Excuse me?" I asked. He smiled. First time I saw him do that. It wasn't friendly. People notice things, especially when they shouldn't be here. Then he walked away. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it was just some weird neighbor power trip. But that night, the pacing was worse. Louder. Faster. Like someone running circles above me. And I swear, I heard him laughing. The next morning, there were scratches on my door. Like fingernail marks. 5 of them. Straight down the wood. I called the property manager. He brushed it off. Gerald's lived there for years. Quiet guy. Probably just cats or something. I asked if he had pets. Not that I know of, but who knows? I called the police. They sent a patrol officer who walked through the apartment, asked a few questions, and said, "Unless something's missing or broken, there's not much we can do. Just keep your doors locked." I started sleeping with a kitchen knife under my pillow. After that night, I stopped sleeping properly. Every creak, every pop from the walls made my body tense up. I kept a chair wedged under the door handle when I went to bed. I didn't even shower unless it was daytime. One morning, I woke up and found my kitchen window slightly open. I never opened that window. It doesn't even have a screen. There was dirt on the sill, like someone had climbed in. But the worst part? My phone had been moved. It was sitting on the counter next to a sticky note I hadn't written. It just said, "Be quieter." I started to lose it after that. I installed a cheap mini camera in my living room. One that looked like a clock. I didn't expect to catch anything. Honestly, I think I did it just so I could tell myself I was doing something. The next night, I went out and slept in my car, just to test a theory. I parked down the block, kept the engine off, and waited. At 3:12 a.m., I got a notification on my phone from the camera app. Motion detected. When I opened the live feed, I nearly dropped the phone. Gerald. In my apartment. Calm, slow, just walking around. He didn't take anything. He didn't even look around much. He just stood in the middle of the room, facing the camera. Then he smiled again, that weird, thin smile, and walked out through the front door. I called the cops immediately. They actually took it seriously this time, especially once I showed them the footage. They arrested him the next day. Turns out, Gerald had made multiple unauthorized key copies over the years. He used to be a maintenance worker in the same complex, and had never returned his master keys. And here's the kicker, I wasn't the first. The previous 2 tenants in my unit had filed complaints too. One moved out after just 2 months. The other one, she was never officially declared missing, but she left behind everything: furniture, clothes, food in the fridge. Her case was quietly closed after a few months, labeled no foul play suspected. The police started digging deeper into Gerald's past. Old restraining orders. One dismissed assault charge, a sealed record involving a former neighbor. But nothing that stuck. He's in custody now, awaiting trial. They're trying to build a stronger case based on the footage, the tools he had, and patterns from the past. I moved out 2 days after he was taken. New city. No upstairs neighbors. But some nights, I still wake up at 3:12, instinctively, and I check the corners of the room, just to make sure no one's standing there.